Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is your boy CIZZY, aka Collis. And like I say every week, I don't know why I say also known as Collis, because I am Collis, but nonetheless, I like to say that. It is the Voices of Value podcast. We are, again, at Leo Moreno Jr. Boxing Club in Overland Park, Kansas. You know what that means. If you're struggling with the fisticuffs, come here. If your children need, they need some exercise, maybe they're getting pushed around a little bit. I'm not encouraging violence, but Leo Moreno Jr. Boxing Club. And outside of that, 5-star review, share with a friend. That is the only way we can grow. We are back at it again with another amazing guest. I don't lie to you guys. And with that being said, let's introduce Holly Post. Go ahead and say hello to the people.
Hello to the people. I'm Holly. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Collis.
Absolutely. I love it. Thank you so much for coming in. I know you're a busy lady. I know, like we were just talking about when you're walking in, just running around the city. But thank you for making some time.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's jump right into it. So 2004, you launch a business by the name of Hollyday Spa. Is that correct? Is that
true.
Okay?
That's correct.
Is that what we call it? Hollyday Spa. There's no words I'm missing in there. Is there?
Initially, yeah, it's Hollyday Spa. That was the jump. Yep,
okay,
Hollyday
perfect.
Spa.
And so that's over 20 years ago. You stayed in business for 20 years. I was doing some little research today. You know, you're 4.9, pretty much 5 stars on Google reviews. We're getting 5 stars on Facebook reviews. We have clients flying in from Florida to come back to Kansas City to work with you. We have people from driving in from 2 hours out of Kansas City to, come to Hollyday Spa to get what they need done because they trust you guys. They enjoy time with you guys. And I know, when we read through your bio, one of the most important things, especially in the service industry in general, but the most important things is hospitality and taking care of your customers when they come in. So where does the name Hollyday come from? That's where I want to start. They know what the business is. They're probably wondering in their head, how'd she come up with that name?
Well, so I was sitting in a bar. And where were we at? I was on a vacation with some girls, and we were sitting around, and I knew I was going to launch this business. I had been working for someone else. So I was like, it's time. I want my own place. And I thought, I liked to play on words, Holiday, but one of the reasons the main reason it's called Holiday is because I come from a family of 5 girls.
Wow.
And so I'm a middle child. Mm-hmm. And getting attention from either parent was a little bit of a struggle. Mm-hmm. So my mom, once a month, would pull one of us out of school, and she would call it our day. So it would be Holly Day or Amy Day or Chelsea Day. But that day was dedicated to us. And we would get to go. We'd go to wherever we wanted for lunch, do whatever we wanted to do. But that was one-on-one time with our mom. And that was really special. And that left such an impression on me as a child. I just felt so special that day. Mm-hmm. And so when I was sitting around with my friends and we were kind of talking about it, I thought Holiday, because it's kind of like I want people to come in and feel like they're on a holiday, right? Mm-hmm. I want them to relax. I want them to feel welcome, but I want them to feel special like I felt on those days that were holidays with my mom. So that's how the name originated. Holiday.
I love it so much. And let's dive into just before we jump in, I'm going to scoot this a little bit closer to you. But right before, we get too deep into the business conversation, your family, 5 sisters, you're a middle child. What part of town, if it was Kansas City or what state, like where did you grow up? And talk to us a little bit about the environment in terms of the city that you grew up in and how that kind of is infiltrated your business or how you carry yourself on a day-to-day.
Yeah. So I was raised very middle class. My mom was a hairdresser. My dad was a plumber. I was born in Pennsylvania. We relocated here to be closer to my mom's family when I was probably in the 5th, 6th grade. And then I was just raised in Kansas City in a suburb. So Blue Springs, Missouri.
Hey, close to me.
There
Independence baby over here.
There you go.
Did you go to South?
I went to Blue Springs High School.
Blue Springs High School.
Yeah,
I never liked their colors.
No, purple and gold.
It's kind of boring, and it doesn't look good on their football jerseys or anything. I was like, you guys could have done better there.
I think so.
It's all good. It's all good. Pennsylvania. So what do you, I know that was an early part of your life, but what do you remember about Pennsylvania compared to when you came to Kansas City, or that moment, let's just say? So you're, let's say 8, 9 years old,
for sure.
and you're making that transition from the East to the Midwest. Do you remember a difference in culture or neighborhood?
Big change.
Talk about that a
So
little bit.
definitely in our neighborhood back East, you know, there were a lot of different cultures. You know, we were raised in, you know, row homes. So we were literally like next to each other. So we had a tiny little patch of green in the back for a yard, but it was a little bit more urban where, you know, I was born and raised in my early years. And then moving to Kansas City or moving to Blue Springs, it was just, it was a big shift. It really was. It was just because Blue Springs was, I wouldn't say rural then, but it was definitely a lot smaller than it is now. It's kind of bled into Kansas City. So it was definitely a lot smaller. So it was a really different experience. It was good. There was nothing negative about it. It was just completely different.
Do you remember people being like nicer in the Midwest? Because everyone says everyone's nicer in the Midwest compared to the coast. I know you were a kid, probably didn't pay too much attention to that. But even like in your travels now, do you think that's a reality? Like Midwest, people are actually genuinely so much kinder? Because I haven't necessarily found that to be true.
I don't find that. I find if you're kind, people are kind. I always lead with kindness.
Yeah.
So if I lead with kindness, how are you going to be mad at me?
True.
You
True.
know?
100%.
You're not.
I love it. I love it. So what was the early interest though? Like I can't imagine Hollyday, the spa, aesthetics, med spa, all things, you know, health, wellness, beauty. I can't imagine that was immediately the goal at like 7 years old or 10 years old or 12 years old. So when you think about like your early interest as a teenager, what initially comes to mind of like, oh, I actually thought I was going to be a firefighter or this or that? What do you remember
I really
being
thought
early
I was going to
interest?
be a professional cheerleader.
I love it. Okay.
And my mom was like, Holly, you're not going to make cheerleading a career. But I really did. I was like, oh, you know, I can be a chiefette. You know, I thought, you know, when I was younger. And then, of course, I went to school and I didn't go that direction. And I actually just stumbled into aesthetics. I mean, I was going to be an art teacher. That was what I wanted to do. I spent most of my 20s, honestly, I was a terrible student. I spent most of my 20s traveling. I would travel a ton. So I waited tables and I'd work just enough, go to school just enough, and then I would travel as much as I could. So, you know, Thailand and Europe, and I backpacked Europe. And that's really was my interest, was travel and experiences. I finally got to a point probably in my late 20s, I didn't finish college, and where I was like, what am I going to do with my life? I was living in Chicago. It was one bitter, cold winter day. Homeless guy just peed on himself on the train. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And so I headed back to Kansas City, and I honestly had no idea. And at that time, my mom was like, I think I want to open a bed and breakfast. And she's like, maybe you should go to school to do massage. And I was like, I'll check it out. And so I ended up like going to JUCO because they have an aesthetics program and massage. And that's kind of how I stumbled into it.
Wow.
And then I loved it from day one. I was like, why not? So
what do you remember loving about it? So, because you kind of just answered 2 or 3 of my next questions. So you went to no, that's perfect. That's perfect.
I love making people feel good. I'm a pleaser. You know, I love to make people feel good. I love the intimacy of it. I love human touch. That's really important to me. I do really well one-on-one. I'm not great in like public speaking. I'm a wreck. But one-on-one, I do great. And I loved it. I loved the communication. I loved making people feel special and feel beautiful. You know, it really stuck with me.
And what was the state of the industry back then, though? So first off, your late 20s when you went back to JUCO. Okay, so late 20s when you go back to JUCO, you're entering this period of life where parents and friends and everyone in the world's kind of expecting you to be like, yo, why don't you have it figured out? What are you going to do for the next 30 years of your life? How are you going to take care of the family? This, that. What are you going to do for your bills? Like, you can't just do this all your life. So it's all those words and those questions, not only from others, but also internally. You know, we like to pretend that it's others pressuring us, but it's also ourselves.
For sure.
So you decide to go back to JUCO. You decide to go into massage and aesthetics or study that at the time. You fall in love with the connectivity of it, the human touch, the human to human connection. You found that, okay, this might be something that I have a skill set in. Like I'm a natural. But like, what makes you decide, hey, I'm actually going to go all in on this? You know, people are making decisions based off how much am I going to get paid per year? Like, what's the salary going to look like? Where's the industry going? Is the job market open? So like, what was your thought process about like, was it just, I like this, I'm doing it? Or was it, okay, the industry's going to grow at this, you know, CAGR for the next 10 years or whatever?
No one knew the industry was going to do this. You know, it's interesting. Those are really good questions. For me, and I always say ignorance is bliss, because I don't know that I can't do things. And so I'm like, oh, sure, why not? I can do it. And so when I started it, the industry really was kind of just only for ladies that lunched. I mean, I certainly didn't know anything about it. I mean, I was raised, you know, very middle class, if not lower middle class. And so we didn't have extra income for facials and waxing. And it was a very different time. So I just kind of landed on it. And then I just was really good at it. And I was actually handpicked out of school by a major company that had heard about me through some job fair. Someone had said, you really need to check this girl out. She's really good. And that's while I was in school. And so they actually pulled me, once I was done, they hired me right out of school. And I was an educator for them. But it just clicked. It all clicked. It clicked on every level.
Let's dive into that a little bit more. What does it mean to be an educator? What were like the big companies at that time that everyone knew about?
So the one major company that you would know about was Aveda.
Okay.
Like that was like the big company of the time for skincare. I mean, these were like these were for like wealthy ladies. This wasn't for your average female. Now it's so mainstream. A lot of that's due to, I think, social media, but it's like, you know, everybody's getting it done. But Aveda was who hired me, you know, right out of school. And then educating meant that I would go and I would train other estheticians on skincare products, treatments. I would travel around and do that.
And we'll dive into a little bit more, but do educators still exist today? Is that still a thing? Like
they do. They do. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So this is what time? So from what year to what year are you working for Aveda? Also, I didn't know it's pronounced like that. Totally pronounced it different all my life.
That's
But anyways, continue.
Well, listen, and you know what? I can be wrong, but I think it's Aveda. I'm pretty sure it's Aveda.
We'll go with that.
So I got out of school at 30, and I worked for Aveda for probably 2 years. And then they phased my position. The company was sold. And then I actually went to brick and mortar and worked for another day spa.
Okay, nice. And so between, you know, finishing at Aveda, working at the new brick and mortar day spa, and then actually launching Holliday in 2004, what was that time period like? So how many years between
4.
here and there? Okay, 4. Perfect. So it's 4 years later. Holiday, you're sitting down with friends, you're like, okay, I got to go out on my own. Are you looking immediately at opening up a brick and mortar location? Are you looking at doing like home, like being in home? Sure. Are you looking at, you know, I've been noticing these, I forgot the name of the company. It's pretty big, probably all over, but I've seen them. Solana salons or something. Solas. Like, are you thinking about like renting out an office space? Like, what was the initial plan in 2004 for the launch of the brand?
So the initial plan, well, what happened was our salon was purchased, and I loved the owners, the original owners. So our salon was purchased, and I was kind of like, wasn't feeling good. I wasn't feeling the vibe of the new ownership. Just not, you know, nothing negative, just, you know, it wasn't a good fit for me. Yeah. And so I was driving up the street, and there was like a teeny tiny little office space for rent, 400 square feet. And I was like, I called and I was like, I'm interested. And I just bought a house, and I had a tiny bit of money left in savings that I took to open the business. And that's what I did. I
love it. It wasn't, you know, when you said earlier, ignorance is bliss, you don't necessarily think like, oh, I can't do that. No. That's not a natural thought for Holly. So at the time, was that how you were feeling? Or was there any sense of fear? Like, what if this falls on its head? Like, what am I going to do? What's my plan B?
Never.
Well, what was your thought process then? So if there's no like, all right, my plan B is this, or I might fail, so let me prepare for this, then what was the focus? Like, okay, I'm going to
just go.
Let's
go. Let's go and let's grow.
And what did family and friends say at the time? What was the conversation like there?
I think everybody was pretty supportive in the beginning. If you would ask any of my family or friends that knew me in my early 20s, if they would have never thought I'd be where I'm at today, I can tell you that, because I just, you know, I was such a free spirit and really just art and travel. And I just, you know, I was probably not the most responsible 20 something. I can tell you that. But yeah, I opened that, you know, 400 square foot. It was just me. My sister was my receptionist. I paid her with Diet Coke, chocolate, and People magazine. She was terrible. I had to take her to lunch. She worked 2 days a week. But, it was just, I was already at that point, though, I was booked solid. I had tons of clients. I had a huge following already. So I wasn't afraid of finances because that was just they're going to follow me.
Yeah.
And so I was already established with a client base at that point. I wouldn't have done that right out of school, but I was established. And so I wasn't worried about finances at that point.
And at that time, when you think about like businesses growing, establishing a client base, what people think about now, especially from like a business growth standpoint, or like younger populations, is like Instagram. I'm going to post content around my, skill set or whatever space I'm in.
Yep.
I'm going to post a lot of content. I'm going to try to provide value, right? Or I'm trying to provide value, what they say, information, entertainment, or education, right?
Yep.
And then there's going to be some people that DM me, and then I'm going to get a client, and then I'm going to go here. Or when they think about, or people are going to leave 5-star reviews on Google or Facebook. This is 2004.
So different.
Things are a little bit different
Yes.
at this time. And I'm not, trying to say it's back in the days
No,
or
it
anything,
was
but
back
it
in the
was 20
days.
years ago.
Totally.
So 20 years ago at the time, like what does business growth, what does business like establishment, like trying to, is it all word of mouth? Is that your
word of
only
mouth,
plan?
100% word of mouth, 100%. Yeah. I mean, it was crazy. It was like, I was actually just having this conversation because I am so social media adverse because I think it's a double-edged sword, right? Like we need it because it grows businesses. But the flip side of that is there's so much misinformation out there, so much inaccurate information, especially in my industry, and I abhor it. I just absolutely abhor it. And you get sucked into that rabbit hole of hours on social media instead of reading a good book or walking your dogs or having a great conversation with somebody like you. So I feel like it's robbing our youth of that, which makes me really sad. And I just said to somebody, I miss the days where, it was just word of mouth. You tell your friends, hey, where do you get your facials? I go to Holly. Next thing you know, that person calls me and then they tell a friend. And so that's what I miss. I miss the authentic connections that come because that doesn't exist anymore. It's sad to me.
That's very real. I feel like that might have to be a part 2 where we dive nothing but into that topic because it's such a it's such an intense topic that needs to be discussed. I think again, we're not going to dive into it right now, but I think especially like amongst males, like in young adult males, how much the internet, gaming, and a few other things that are out there, pornography and other things. Yeah.
Young
that
girls
just
in my
tear
industry.
It. Yeah.
I mean, it's all about filters and image and, and morphing themselves into something that they're not physically. And it's creating a very shallow culture, and listen, I own med spas.
Yeah.
So
with that being said, like from a loving, but a good challenging question to have, like for somebody who listened to exactly what you just said and was like, well, you're in the industry how would you, I guess, respond to somebody questioning the intentions or the space, especially amongst medical spas, or adjusting the way somebody's look is what somebody might say. So what would you say in response to that when people are, especially if they're coming at it from a negative light?
Yeah, so I have a real responsibility to educate people. And so I was just telling someone the other day, I turned away 3 young girls that wanted their lips done, which would have brought me almost $2,000 in income. And I just said no. And it's like they didn't need it. They were beautiful the way they were. Now, had they gone somewhere else or, somebody would have put more filler in their lips, they start looking crazy because people don't say no because they're doing it because they want the money. For me, I have a responsibility. It's my job to say no. It's my job to explain what happens when things go wrong. So education's a key thing for Holliday. And we're not afraid to say no. It's not about a bottom line for me. It's not financial. That happens. I've been very blessed, but I think part of that is because people trust me and they trust my staff that we're going to do the right thing. We're not just trying to sell something to them.
Yeah, I love that. And how do you communicate that to your staff though? You can be the owner of a company and have, standards that you set for yourself. Yeah. And I'm sure there's some way to integrate that into, I guess you would say, your, policies like paperwork and stuff like that for people who are getting hired on and or working out of the spa. But how do you communicate that to your staff? Like, hey, I don't care. Like if somebody comes in, they don't need it. Like, You get what I'm saying? How do you communicate
because
that?
I hire like-minded girls, and females. Listen, I'd love to have a male. We just never get applicants.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hire like-minded females, and they train with me one-on-one, my injectors, for 6 months. And so I hire them new to the industry, and I train them specifically the way that I want them to inject and to communicate. And so we are all like-minded that way. And I like fresh faced. I like, it's just not allowed.
I think
education.
I think there's some excitement. Something just got me excited there with like you hire them fresh into the industry and you train them in a way that sets high standards. They're learning right under the boss lady who has plenty of years and skill sets. So they develop the skill. They develop the, I guess, morale around how to function in this business, function in this industry. And then when they do happen to leave you at some point, because it's bound to happen,
it's going to happen.
When they do happen to leave you, they can carry that same energy into another spot. And I'm sure there's plenty of other spots that are like, oh, you came from Hollyday? Say less. Come on over here. So when you think about when you think about collaboration within the space, and that may not be the right word, but like support of other med spas in Kansas City. I know the popular one that I see everywhere is Bear Med Spa, or I'm sure there's other locations that are smaller scale and not massive organizations. But how do you think about, promoting? Is there any time where you can for example, I'll give a better example so I can ask my question. So as a personal trainer, somebody might come to me and I might be like, okay, what are some of your challenges? And they might be like, I tore my ACL last year, I have osteoporosis, and I have type 1 diabetes, and I need to get off this medication and this. I might be like, okay, I don't have experience with that. So here's my guy who I know works with people like you. How does that work in your space? Do you ever find yourself doing that? If you do, how do you figure out this location is good for this, or I trust these people?
So generally speaking, we do everything. If it comes to aesthetics, any form of aesthetics, we offer it. And so it's rare that I will refer on to another med spa. I mean, it's just because we offer everything, so there isn't anything that we don't specialize in. So that doesn't happen. Now, what I do is I definitely support other business owners. So like today I reached out to a young woman who just opened a company, and I feel like she's underpriced. And I reached out, I said, let's go have coffee. Let's talk about this. Let me help you out. Let me mentor you. And she doesn't know me from Adam. She comes into Hollyday. She's a great girl. But I was like, sometimes we need somebody who has some experience to raise us up and pull us forward, bring us forward. And so that's the kind of stuff I do. If I have a training, I fly professionals, trainers in from all over the United States to educate my team, I'll invite other nurses to come and just watch, because it's expensive. A lot of people can't afford that. And I invest a lot of money annually on trainings. So I'll invite other nurses to be guests at our training so that they have, the same advantage, because we're all better when we're better, right?
Yeah.
So that's that. Those are the ways that I
love that.
Refer and support.
I love that. And that was going to lead into my next question about industry knowledge and continued education in the space and what that looks like. Is there I don't know, big conferences thing where everyone goes to the same conferences, and if so, what are the benefits of that? How do people continue their education in this industry, in this space?
Yeah, sure. So, tons of conferences. I mean, tons. Monthly, there's conferences all over the United States. I went to one in London. I was supposed to be in one in Paris a couple months ago, but my passport was expired.
Yeah, we got to have you tell that story after this. Yeah.
Anywho. But yeah, so I've done most of the ones I can stateside. Now I'm going global because there's so much out there globally that we don't do in the States. They're so advanced. So that's kind of where I've branched out. But I also fly in, people that I admire and respect to train my staff. So I do that a lot.
I love that.
And I'm unique in that way.
Let's double down on the talk about uplifting or building the right community inside of your company. So I guess that's one way you've done it. You hire professionals who are great in a specific skill set. You fly them in to educate your staff and kind of keep leveling people up. That's one way to do it. Setting standards for like, hey, you know, this is the work we do. This is the quality of work we do. Are there any other frameworks or maybe policies or quotes or something that you live by in the Holliday ecosystem that kind of just lets people know this is the brand, this is the expectation, and this is how we keep vibes positive around here?
You know, it's funny because it's been a real learning experience for me because I'm a bootstraps girl. And, you know, I've just always been a hard worker and I'm a hustler. And it has taken me 20 years to learn how to develop a healthy culture. And I can always say I'm not perfect because I'm a little tough. You know, I'm not a coddler because I was never coddled or handed anything. I did this all by myself. So I'm trying to shift that a little bit. I'm trying to engage more. So it's coming from me. But that's funny that you say I just hired a new business coach and we're working on that. We're working on our Holliday values and establishing what those are. So, you know, stay tuned and I'll read those out for you.
I love it.
But that's something we're working on right now is he's a culture coach. So I've hired someone, you know, to just help with company culture because as we grow, there's a lot of different personalities and it can get, you know, it can get tough.
Absolutely.
It can get tricky.
Usually you go to your website and you have 2 locations right now in Kansas City. If you wouldn't mind dropping where those are at.
I have one in the Waldo area, one East Gregory, and then I have one in the Prairie Village shops.
Perfect. So right now you have 2 locations and when you go to the website, you have plenty of staff already, right? Oh, yeah. So when we think about growth, what does growth look like to you? Is it like just increasing, I guess, forgive me for my lack of business knowledge, top line, bottom line amongst these 2 locations, or is it expanding globally, regionally? Like, what does growth look like? Let's just put it in the next 10 years for Holly. What does Holliday look like in the next decade?
You know, we'll probably do so the Prairie Village location is an injection studio. So we solely do injections. Okay. The main location is a full med spa where we do everything. So my interest is kind of opening another injection studio. And we'll see. I love what I do so much. You know, I'm in the treatment room, which is not really heard of for owners. But I love it so much that it's hard for me to give that up. I think in order for me to expand and grow more, I'll probably have to step out of the treatment room, which is I'm just not ready to do yet. We have plenty of room for growth. You know, I mean, we have always set goals every year and, you know, financial goals of numbers I want to hit. And then, you know, 10 out of 10 times we hit them. So
when you first launched, not first launch, but in terms of opening up a larger location than the 400 square foot one, was that immediately the 400 after you spent a few years there, jumped to the East Gregory location?
It was one location. No, it was 400 square feet. I was there for less than a year. And then I basically 4 other businesses went out in that particular area. And I just knocked down walls one by one and took over each business.
Nice. That's funny. That's kind of what the gym that I, outside of your husband's, the gym that I train at, he did the same thing. He opened up like 2016, 2017, had one spot, then somebody left the location next, broke down the wall and expanded. It's funny. That's you know, when you think about getting your own space in whatever business you're in, and I feel like it's important to kind of look at, okay, what else we got in here? Because if these people leave, or if I'm just growing that fast, I might be able to buy them out and be like, hey, would you mind if I take over this space? I'll pay you for it. So that's interesting. So awesome. You've been there for a little bit. It's funny because before I started working at F45, which is F45 Leewood, owned by Jack, who happens to be Holly's husband, which happens to be the reason we know each other. Before then, I had reached out to Holliday, just sending emails to other spas, med spas, doctors, different people in the health and wellness space, like just trying to figure out, I had no idea what I planned to do, but trying to figure out ways to collaborate or partner.
Interesting.
And so I had passed by a few times and I was like, and then when you know, I started working at F45 and I'm like, Holliday, why does that sound familiar? And I went back to my email since, I was like, so it was fine. I was like, January 17th, 2023. I was like, this life is funny. You never know how things are connected. Absolutely. But anyways, besides that, let's talk about when you open up the injection studio in Prairie Village, is it because, okay, we're running out of space? And how do you come to the decision like, hey, it's time to open up? Like, how do you, because I mean, that costs money. It's money to rent a space or buy a space. It costs money to outfit a space. Sure. It costs money to put staff in that space. It costs money for the extra gas to drive back and forth to different spaces. So like, what had to happen for you to make the decision to open up this new location?
So in my industry, because now we've gone medical. So when I started out, I was a day spa. So we get facials, massages, manicures, and pedicures.
So it's not medical
right.
yet. Okay.
It wasn't medical when I opened.
You're educating me right now.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And so I became a med spa. Oh gosh, Collis, I'm trying to think of how many years we've been a med spa. A long time.
A long enough time.
And the industry is growing. The med spa industry is growing. And what I find sad is how many nurses want to break into it that have real potential, but they just don't have a place to go where they get the education and the proper training. There's a lot opening up on every single corner, and these girls are not getting trained properly. They're not getting educated, and that translates into things that are really dangerous. Like, when you're getting into med spa and injections, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. And I get 10 resumes a day from nurses wanting to work for me. That's why I opened the injection studio, because I wanted to give these nurses a place to work, to be successful, to be educated properly, to get the right training. Because there were so many good ones. I was turning them away left and right, and it was breaking my heart. I was like, there's so many great girls out there that just want a shot. And it was, really after COVID when they were just so burned out. And so that's why I opened the injection studio.
I love it. I think there's something to be said about just caring about other people and how that can help your business expand.
For sure.
I was like, okay, I mean, if you guys didn't notice by listening to what she said, the initial thought is, hey, I want to help these people out.
Yeah.
And especially when you're starting from like the core, the foundation of how can I be of service to others? Obviously, you got to do the hard work. Obviously, you got to understand business. Obviously, you got to continue to advance like you are with your career coaching and going to industry events.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, I think a lot of up-and-coming business owners in any space could do themselves a lot of good by just starting with how can I be of service to others?
100%.
How can I, care about other people? How can my services be improved by focusing on them and not on myself? But we do need to care about ourselves. So, Holly,
100%.
for somebody who's running a business that's doing well, you're busy, you're running around, I'm sure there's plenty of, stresses that come up.
Sure.
So how do you practice, such an overused word right now in my humble opinion, but I'm going to use it anyways,
okay.
Self-care. How do you practice self-care in Holly's life? Like, what are some things or some boundaries that you integrate or introduce into your life to make sure, hey, I'm good. I'm good up here. I'm good right here. And when I'm good up here and right here, I can actually serve my people.
Yeah, that's good. So I've always moved my body. So fitness for me has always been a priority. Like I work out, 2 to 3 hours a day, different things from, pickleball to whatever. I've always been, my mother is just a guru. She's this just amazing human. She's really spiritual and she's just so in tune with herself. And so I've always respected that. But to take it full circle with what you just asked me, I took a year off from my meditating, my breath work, my reading. I just needed a break. I was like, I just don't want to dig deep anymore. I don't want to constantly be trying to soul search. And I took a year off I took 2023 off, and it was a big mistake because it really affected me mentally and emotionally. And so now 2024, I've gone back into the deep dive, and I'm like, actually, I want to be a person that has depth. I really want that. I just wanted to have fun. I wanted to enjoy life. I thought I was getting too heavy, too intense. And I thought, you know what? I don't want to be just a surface person. I want that depth. And I took that year off. It was good for me to do that because now I can look back and reflect and go, big mistake. Because I need that balance. I'm such an intense, driven person that if I don't have that time where I'm quiet and I sit and I'm still, I just spin, I'm a whirling dervish, and it's not healthy. And physical isn't enough. You've got to have the mental and the spiritual. It's the trifecta.
I love it. So when we think about moments of quiet time or moments of just reflection, I guess, is there a framework or protocol or anything like, do you breathe in, breathe out for 10 seconds, or like, what is something that you find yourself doing a lot? It might even just be like, hey, I just turn the TV off 2 hours before bed and read a calm book. Like, it could be the simplest or it could be most intense, but what would you like to share about maybe something you do from a meditation standpoint or from a calming my body standpoint?
Yeah. So basically for me, it's just quiet. It's still. I just need quiet. I don't need a television. I don't listen to, a lot of podcasts. I just getting off social media. It's just being quiet. And breath work is huge for me. So meditation, that was always tough for me. So I find if I'm just still and I can do my breath work, which is like inhaling, I count to 7 and then I exhale counting to 7, that's really important for me. So between just still moments and breath work, those are 2 things that really help me. Reading is another thing, just finding a great book. I think I just shared recently, like I'm reading 3 books right now. One is 101 Essays That'll Change the Way You Think. The 5 Resets is blowing my mind because that's all about how to handle stress. And then the Pivot Year, which is just a daily kind of read. Those 3 things are just seriously blowing my mind, those 3 books. And then I did just read something about writing 1 sentence a day because I've gone on and off with journaling. But again, it's almost stressful for me because I feel the pressure to do it. So I'm going to start writing a sentence. I'm going to add that to my morning routine.
I love it. How do you, I think one thing, a lot of young business owners or striving business owners, they may not even be business owners yet, but they are mentally, right?
Sure, of course.
They struggle applying what they learn. Do you have any it doesn't have to be something super in depth, but do you have any like just baseline to, reading the 3 books, like how do you think about applying what you learn from a book or from a podcast, or maybe just, you and your husband are both business owners, so it might just be something Jack shares from his experience owning his business. So it's like, how do you think about, I've received this information, now I need to apply it so that it just doesn't receive.
100%. Yeah. You got to be super mindful. And so for me, it's like, my thing I'm working on right now is pausing before I respond, react, speak, taking a pause, because I'm a real knee-jerk person. And so I've been reading about it. It's right here in my brain. And now I have to be so mindful of that action. And so it's being mindful, and it's like exercise. You have to do it every single day. You've got to like practice that mindfulness, because if you don't, you're right. It's all up in here, or it all just kind of goes away. And so really, it's just again a pause. I think you have to pause a lot when you're taking in information, just to process it.
I love it. Pausing, silence.
Yeah.
Breathing. We talk about those 3 things, and I'm sure plenty of others that contribute to reducing psychological stress that comes from family, from business, from all the different things of life. And so on the general topic of stress, finish the sentence for me. The scariest moment in business for me was when
I almost lost it in 2007.
So 3 years in, what happened from what you're allowed to share?
That was when Obama went into office and we had a huge crash financially.
2000, yes,
and
yes.
And I just, my business bottomed out.
Wow.
Petrified me.
Wow. And I'm young, so you gotta help me understand, like, how does something like that impact all the businesses that, different people's businesses? Like, is that just like people are making less money at the time, and so everyone stops spending money, and then you literally see that reflected in your numbers?
Yep. It was just a spending it was like COVID when we shut down for COVID, and I'm thinking, how am I going to take care of my girls?
Right.
I have single moms, I have single girls, I have young, women that are the breadwinner in their family. How am I going to take care of my team? It was the same in 2007. I just didn't have the resources then that I have now. I've got the resources now where I could easily keep my business open for a long time, but that's just, being a smart business owner and putting it away.
So 3 things that come to mind. It's easy to say 3, so I'm just saying 3 things. You can give me 1. I don't
like
care.
Trilogies.
But 3 things that have been super important, I don't know, placeholders, integral to getting to the point where you have the resources to manage your business in times of distress in the world, right? So we had the pandemic happen. You just shared you were able to make it through that situation and continue growing. You come out of it opening up a new business. So what are some business practices that you've put into place that you feel like have helped you guys not only remain profitable, but just not go under in times of stress? You're right. Yeah,
for sure. That's the thing, is being the best of the best. Is I invest in my people, I invest in my team, I educate, I put everything so much back into the business, and I take a huge portion of earnings each month and I put that in a separate account that's, my financial advisor, so that it's really important for me to have a certain number set aside that if anything would happen, that I know we would be okay. But the other thing is educating my team, reinvesting into my business, always staying current, always staying on top of things, running a clean business, which is huge. People don't think about with brick and mortar. It's like, I like a squeaky clean business because people see that, they notice that, they recognize that. But those are the things that draw people back in. Again, it's just being good to customers and being good to your staff and to keep them. I don't lose people. I keep my team.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the years. I was like, okay, I guess the manager or general manager, I don't know. I know her, but 12 years, you got another person in like 6, another person in 10. I was just looking at the years. I was like, people are not leaving within 2 years, and especially young people, like anybody in their mid-30s and under. Typically, the turnover is like every 1 to 3 years they leave a job and move to another one, and we're seeing people stay 5, 6 years
they get
and
paid
longer.
Really well.
Yeah,
so I reinvest in my team, and I think that translates into them investing into their patients and their clients.
I love it. How much of that, when you think about investing back in the people who are investing in you, not necessarily the staff, but staff too, but your customers, how much of that service energy, taking care of you energy, like I show up, I'll do anything for my customers energy, did you pick up from your parents? Because you said plumber, hairdresser, both service industry, both a plumber has to come in your house, give you good vibes, take care of business, be ready to show up, answer the phone, be the best that they can be. Hairdresser has to talk up their clients, make sure everything looks good, make sure they look fresh, make sure they come in feeling good and leave feeling good so that they continue coming back. How much of that do you feel like you picked up from your parents? And it's okay if it was none, but just
I'll tell you what, I got my hard working from my dad. He's a hustler, hard worker, and he's a hustler. That's where I got my drive. I got my tender heart and my softness from my mom and my intuition with other humans from her. That's what I got from them. I will tell you where I got where this ability came from. And I worked at Houston's restaurant, and I'm telling you what, it was so strict, and there were so many systems in place. And any of my Houston's buddies that I worked with back in the day, they're all hugely successful. That's where Jack and I met in our 20s.
Okay. I was like, why is Houston sounding familiar in my brain now? Okay.
And so it was a restaurant, but I'm telling you, it was strict. We had lineups every day. If your tie was dirty, they'd cut it off with scissors. You had to have all matching pins. It was no joke. But we made good money, and that's where I think that skill set came from.
I love that. I love that. It's funny. I think there's such a, I don't know if you find this to be similar for you. I'm sure you have plenty of friends who aren't business owners, or people who are even interested in being business owners. But the difference in mindset that you have to have, just what you said about Houston's. And I can see that. I've yet to see you in your day-to-day. I just know you from the general energy I pick up, but especially with Jack, I can see that dialed in. I need things, this. And others may look at that from a why are you so done? Why are you so this or that? But it's go look at the business success and look at the happiness of the customers and what my business looks like compared to other, not to compare, but compared to business owners who don't have the same standards. I was telling Jack that the other day. I said, I went to a few other locations and Jack, I just want to say good job.
Yeah.
That's all I want to say, Jack.
Systems.
And I was like, I'm just going to say good job, Jack, and we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll find the same thing if we walk into your locations and spend a day with you, and then go to other locations, whoever they might be, and spend a day with them. The standards and being able to stand 10 toes down on that and not like, not bend when somebody like challenges you a little bit, when you know that these need to be in place. It's tough. But, when you see the back end and you see how many people you're able to, feed really at the end of the day, or provide the opportunities to feed their family, it's like, I don't really care. You can say what you want, just leave. It's just at the end of the day. At the end of the day. So, just want to applaud you on that as well. I think that's really important. So, a few more questions before we pop out of here today. If you were to create your own MBA, right? People go to school, they go to, I don't know, Wharton, Yale, whatever, to do their business administration program. They learn things that I'm sure are important that they take into their job, but you have real world experience the past 20 years. If you were to create your own like program of like classes people would need to study to be a good business owner, I guess what would those courses be? If you were to create your own MBA, what would be inside of that? What would that look like?
Oh man, well I talk about this all the time. Systems. You have to have systems. If you don't have systems put in place to run a business, forget about it. You're fledgling. You'll never succeed. You just won't, or you won't achieve the level of success that you desire. So systems put in place. I'd have an entire program on systems. I would have an entire program on company culture, because, these younger generations, they're, no offense, I mean, they're amazing in so many different ways, but you have to work with them differently. You have to lead them differently. So that would be something, working with these, I won't even say Gen Zs. I won't say any of that business. Young bulls. Let's just leave it at that. That's a whole different. And then I would say, honestly, just, really just customer service. I mean, I think that in any business, it's communication and customer service, and how are you approaching that? And then how you can work with social media and not be completely consumed by it. How you can have your parameters around it, utilize it for what you need for business and for growth without getting sucked into the rabbit hole of social media.
I love it. I love it a lot. So now I have a few random semi-specific, or actually just one, but so I was, just going through your business and everything, going through the website, and I saw, speaking of systems and or just things you have in place, you are using, I think the company's called Cherry or something like that, for like financing, right? If you wouldn't mind sharing, just because I have a real strong interest, how much of your business, how many customers actually use Cherry, basically it's Afterpay or Karma, but it's a different brand and they service the medical space, right?
Exactly.
So is there a lot of people using that, or is it like most people are like, no, I have this budgeted into my
It's a small percentage. Very small percentage.
Interesting. I was like, because in my head I'm like, man, I don't know your prices because I don't, but I'm just in my head, I'm like, it got to be expensive. So I'm like,
it is.
So I'm like, how many people are really budgeting this into their budget, and how many people are putting this on, I'm a buy now, pay later type of vibe. How was there a time in your business where you were like, hey, we need to add this in as something, or did a business coach or somebody just tell you, hey, you guys should add this in?
I mean, when you listen, these services are not cheap. I mean, you can get into thousands and thousands of dollars. So it was something that we felt like we needed to do. We could probably utilize it more, but we just don't. I mean,
if people ain't asking for it, might as well keep them right.
Yeah, and so understand. So we just. Yeah, so it's a very small percentage.
I love it. I have 3 billion questions, but we'll go to our final two.
Okay.
So, the future of the med spa industry is really my question. So it's in 2023, I think $18.6 billion industry. I'm sure that it's probably more. It just depends on what that research study group was using. But 18.6 billion in 2023, growing at I think they said a 13% year over year. So what do you think the future of the med spa market is going to look like? What products, what services are becoming popular? I know somebody made a joke at F45 the other day. They were like, what they say? They found a random syringe outside or something like that, and they brought it in. They were like, if we were in any other part of town, I would assume that this was,
Right.
drugs, heroin or something. But we're in Leawood, so it's probably semaglutide.
There you go.
And then we all started cracking up
Yeah.
where it's just like, it was probably GLP-1. So when we think about anything, beauty, health and wellness, what do you think is like coming up next? Like, what do you think are some things that you're going to have to start integrating into your business in the next 10 years?
I think what you're seeing now is less fillers. So fillers were, that's where you get that puffy face, you get so overdone. You're going to see that starting to diminish. And actually that's starting to go down. The sales, like you ask anyone, globally, filler sales are going down. What's increasing are bioregenerators. And so things which won't mean anything to you, but like things that stimulate your own collagen. That's what we're looking at. We want to age, but we want to do it with peptides. You're going to see peptides are in the future.
Yes.
They're doing it globally everywhere but the United States. You're going to see injectable peptides. You're going to see the semaglutide by 2030. It's going to be a $300 billion industry, $300 billion by 2030. I mean, but you're also seeing people that are not getting gastric bypass. You're seeing people that, their heart health is better because they're losing the weight. They're drinking less because you don't have the desires. So you're going to start seeing, I think, less of that really overdone look, and you're going to see people aging more naturally with aid from things that are stimulating your own collagen. We just call them biostimulators, but so that's the direction. At least that's the direction we'll be going. But I do believe as an industry, you will see more of that. You'll hear more about it.
Stealing that and creating a business in LA next year, ladies and gentlemen. Look out for it. Awesome. So first and foremost, thank you so much for making time
Collis,
today. I know we're going a little bit over time, so I want to make sure I get to our final question. So we ask all of our guests this. It's your last day on earth. You've lived over 100 plus years, or as long as you've wanted to live. You've achieved all the things you want to achieve, taken care of all the people you've wanted to take care of, had all the peace, prosperity, love, business success, but it's your last day. And you're sitting in a chair, and you're rocking chair, and you got your great-great-grandkids sitting at your feet, and you look down at them, and they say, great-great-great-grandma, what's one piece of advice on how to live a good life? What are you going to tell them?
Be kind.
Be kind. I love it. Why?
You'll always win if you're just a kind, and not kind with any kind of motivation other than just to be a kind human being.
I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, be kind. This is another episode of the Voices of Value podcast with Holly Post. Please plug them on where they can find your business one more time. Absolutely. Socials, email, location, and God willing, we can send some people out to you.
Absolutely. So we've got one location in Prairie Village Shops, Hollyday PV Injection Studio, Hollyday Med Spa, 1 East Gregory Boulevard. Yes, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Hollyday Med Spa, Hollyday PV, and we'd love to see you.
Awesome. And that's easy. HOLLY Day. Type it in on Google. It's going to pop up, especially if you live in Kansas City. And if you don't, you can still come get your services here in Kansas City when you fly in, because we got a new airport. We got a poppin' city. We're Super Bowl champs. Yeah, and we're also the home of the best business podcast, Voices of Value. Salute.